Hi, everybody. Today is October 31st, and it is indeed Halloween. I'm your host, John Bell, and this is DogmanCams.com. That is DogmanCams.com, and today we're talking with Connor from Kentucky to hear about his encounters. Um, Mr. Connor, uh, glad to have you here. Do you mind sharing with the audience what your encounter is?
Um, well, I guess I started, in the beginning how I came in contact with them. Um, I was working with a guy, and he had a large piece of property, and so naturally I was like, well, I know it's some good hunting around there, and you might out would hunt on it, and he thought about it for a while, and he agreed to let me hunt on it. And I had another piece of property that I had been hunting for a good while, and that year it really wasn't any deer around, which was kind of strange. So I went over and went on his property, and I went over to talk to him about it. And he had 68 acres that joins several hundred acres around it that for some reason nobody really uses or does anything on. And I wanted to get a kind of a feel for the property lines and all that. And he said, well, we haven't been back there since I was a little boy. We don't go in the woods, which I thought is pretty strange, if you own a piece of property. But I didn't think that much about it. He gave me a general idea of where the property lines were. And, he said nobody's going to be on the properties around it. So it wasn't a big deal. So I went in there, and when I first went down in there, it's an old logging access road that kind of runs along the top of it. And I hunted it, the first year I was in there. And then the second year, I had a little more time to hunt and decided I was going to try to get a big buck. And so I went down in this deep holler, and it's really thick, a bunch of laurel and steep and just real difficult access. And I got down in there, and it's a creek flowing through it, and it kind of opens up kind of into a bowl. It's like little finger ridges that come in kind of a circular pattern to this one spot where it kind of opened up. And I killed 3 8-pointers the first week off the same tree. And which was amazing. I'm happy I'm in a honey hole. Well, I hunted it for the first week and decided I was going to leave out and kind of go out the other end of the property and circle back to the road bed. And I got up, and like I say, it's steep, and I don't really know much about the layout or anything, so I'm figuring it out. And I go up this steep ridge, and I could hear something coming, way down in this deep holler. And as I see it's a buck running through, and he's really just hauling ass. Well, as steep as a holler, and I already had some deer meat, I wasn't going to go trying to shoot him because, it'd be just a pain in the ass try to get it out there. And then I can hear something coming behind it. Well, I was catching glimpses of it through the trees, and I could tell it was really big and black. And I'm not much on, shooting bears or anything, but I would like to have a real big one on. If I'm gonna shoot one, I want to shoot a real big one. And so I was seeing glimpses of black coming through in spots. And as it came out the other end, up the steep ridge on the other side, you could, where the deer run through, there was kind of a clear spot where I could see for a little ways. And so I put the gun up and went to shoot, or went to wait on it to hit that spot so I could get a shot on it. And as it ran through my scope, the first thing I noticed is it was really big. And the first thing that hit me was it was a humped up area on its back. And, you could see kind of like it was like a bony type of hump. It wasn't like a big, like grizzly bear rounded bat hump. And I could see the tips of the fur was white. Like it was black, but the outer tips and stuff of it was white. And it kind of confused me, and I didn't have but, a few seconds to make a shot, and I don't shoot when I'm not exactly sure what, I'm shooting. So it just kind of, I wasn't sure about that, but it kind of spooked me. And I went back in there after that, and I just got a really, really bad feeling about being in there. And it was enough that, I decided I wasn't going back. And so I didn't go back in that holler. And it was sometime after that, I live maybe 5 miles from there. It's just mountains that kind of connected. And I started kind of feeling a little funny around here at night, and hearing some weird stuff, but it's woods all the way around me. And I usually buy and sell old trucks and hot rods and stuff like that. So I had a truck sitting down. My driveway is about a quarter mile long, and I had a truck sitting down there. Well, I'd had a battery stolen out of it, and people had messed with some other vehicles I'd had before. So I tried to look down through the woods and look for lights and stuff like that to make sure there wasn't nobody messing with my truck. And I seen it looked like to me like an LED indicator light or something like that. It was just barely a little bit of a glow in the edge of the woods up closer to my house. So I grabbed the gun and snuck out and eased down through there. And about the time, I got up to him and was going to confront him, I heard motion on both sides of me. And next thing I know, I'd say 6 guys in solid black, like a military type uniforms, pretty much had me surrounded. And, I didn't know what to do. I thought I was going to get shot. First thing that crossed my mind is this some kind of, raid gone wrong, because they've got no reason to be at my house. They must have the wrong address, or, you know, something along those lines, because I didn't have no idea, you know, what they would be doing on my property. I'm pretty rural. I mean, there's really nothing around or, you know, anything. So I immediately put my gun up over my head and was like, whoa, 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 you know, I don't know what you're doing, but, you know, I'm not involved. And they wouldn't talk to me. They didn't say anything. And I was like, what do you want me to do? You know, and so I stood there for a few minutes and nobody said anything. And I'm freaked out. You know, I got 6 or 7 armed people around me that, you know, appeared to be either law enforcement or something. I don't know what they are. Was not expecting nothing like that whatsoever. So I didn't know what to do. I stood there for a little bit, and then I said, look, I'm going back to the house. You know, I don't know if y'all in the wrong spot or, you know, y'all looking for somebody or what, but, you know, and they wouldn't answer me. I'm just kind of talking out loud. So I started, you know, backing out, and I had the gun over my head so, you know, I wouldn't be any sort of threat to anyone. And I went back to the house, and, you know, I could still hear some movement around. And, you know, I don't know if they're going to try to raid me or, you know, I don't know what's going on. So I went back out again and turned my porch light on and stood in the yard and raised my shirt up to show them that I was unarmed, and still they wouldn't contact me, nothing. So I really don't know what to do. I'm kind of mad at this point because they done shook me up so bad, and, you know, I'm want to find out what's going on and why they're there. And so I sat in the house for a while, and I've got, you know, my curtains are all open and my lights, you know, living room light, I got everything lit up. So, you know, you can clearly see in the windows and see I'm just sitting in the chair. And at one point, I decided to turn off all the lights, like I was going to bed, and see if they would leave or anything. And when I did, I eased back into the living room with all the lights off, and, you know, I could hear some footsteps. So I slung the door open and had the shotgun pointed right at one of them. I mean, he was, I don't know, 20 foot from my door. And I'm like, who are you and what do you want? And he did not seem concerned in the least bit. And that was really confusing. It was a really big guy. And I didn't have the porch light. I was changing it out. I didn't have my new one put in at the time. So I could make him out from my living room light with the light shining out. You know, I could see the outline or anything of him. And he just kind of turned and looked fairly casual and didn't seem upset at all that I had a gun pointed at him. And, you know, like I said, I tried to make contact with him a couple times, and it nothing. So I finally just decided, well, if they wanted me for something, they had every opportunity to get me, and I don't know what's going on here. So I go to bed, and when I wake up the next morning, you know, first thing I did, you know, I'm I'm 50 years old, and I ain't never went to the police for nothing in my life. And I drove to the state police station and talked to the head guy there, and I explained to him what happened, and asked him if they had some people doing raids or something, that, I had these guys on my property armed that appeared to be law enforcement, military, something along those lines, but I don't know who they are. Well, he said, well, if we did have surveillance or active investigation, I really couldn't tell you that. He looked around on his computer for a little bit, and he said, well, I'm not allowed to tell you, but I'm going to tell you that there's nothing in your area. There's no reason. Nobody's contacted me about, anybody being in your area. So, I get back in there, and I got to drive about 45 minutes to the county sheriff's department. So I go into there, and I talk to the police chief in there, tell him the same thing. And he's like, basically the same thing, that they can't really discuss anything, but, there's nothing that they're aware of in my area or that's going on. So I'm kind of confused over it and not sure what's happening. And so about, I'd say a week or so later, I started hearing late at night, and I had stuff like running through the property. And when I mean like running by through the woods, I'm talking, I know how fast a deer can run, spook through there. And this was a good bit faster. And, I'm wondering what the hell it was, and so I'm going out with the gun because I've had these people on my property, and I'm still paranoid they're going to come back. And, I'm hearing this stuff around. Well, it starts to ramp up. And I had a big German Shepherd and Arctic Thunderwolf mix, and he's just going nuts, and a lot of times I didn't even hear anything, and he'd start, freaking out, and from one end of the house to the other. And, I don't really know what to think of all this. And the getting closer, it started off like a little further out, and then now they're running right through my yard. And they got to smacking. What it sounded like to me, it was like somebody running by and taking your hand and smacking the side of a truck as they was running by. And, a few things hitting the house, and, just like ramping the dog up, and, just kind of escalate. Well, I'm, going out, when I hear something and trying to, pay attention. I got lights and this and that. And so I'm not getting any sleep. I'm basically trying to catch my sleep up during the day at this point, because, between trying to listen and what's going on, I'm stressed out. And the first one I actually seen, I was getting ready to go to bed, and all of a sudden my dog, he starts growling and looking towards the window. And so I don't have a light on that end where my bedroom is. So I grabbed a flashlight, which was the only one I had handy was like a smaller AA type flashlight. So I just shined it out, and in the driveway next to my van, you know, I'm kind of looking over in that direction, and I can see something next to the tree. And I could see the yellow eyes, and there was another set, and you know, back up behind it. And so I'm looking, and then it starts to move out towards me, or out around the tree, out the front of the tree, in between me and, you know, it. And it's just moving strange. You know, it's real low to the ground, and it appeared to be more like a cougar or something would go, or a cat that's real low trying to stalk something, or that. It was more of the fluid motion that it was moving that low to the ground. And I'm looking at it, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm looking at. And it moves over kind of next to my van. It's parked at an angle. And then it just stands up and looks at me. And I'm completely confused at this point. And I'm looking at it, and the light ain't the greatest, but it's not that far away. It's in the driveway. So I can see it pretty good. And it's just standing there looking at me. And, I'm baffled, because the face of it was, it looked more like a fox than anything. It didn't look. It didn't look like I've heard other descriptions after the fact, like a werewolf or Van Helsing or something terrifying. It kind of had a fox look to it, and you know, big ears, and it kind of held its, I want to say, hands, because it had like a raccoon type of hand. It wasn't. It was just strange looking, but it was holding them like you've seen a prairie dog set up in a picture, where they're kind of in front of them when they stand up.
Right.
It's kind of how it was holding itself. And I looked at it for a couple minutes, and I don't know. I didn't know what to do. So I just turned the flashlight off, propped the gun up next to the bed, and turned the lights off, and we went to bed. I was like, whatever this is that's been around here, I don't have no idea what it is or what it really wants. But, you know, unless it tries to get in the house, I really don't want to mess with it. And so I had them running around. One of them run through, and I tried to turn the porch light on to get a better look at it, and it cut to go up through the woods, and I got an old bicycle laying out there at the edge of the woods, and it got kind of hung up in it and let out kind of started off like a yelp to I'd say howl kind of noise. And, you know, like I say, it's just glimpses of it I could see because they're pretty fast. And so then, like say they kept running through and like making noises to stir me and the dog up. I'm assuming they was trying to bait me out of the house is kind of the feeling I got. So just decided didn't care what they made, what noises they made, what they tore up, what they did. I wasn't going out there. And so I'm trying to, just ignore everything and watch TV, and I'm on my phone. And I happen to kind of look over to my left, and it appeared to be the same one, but it been raised up and was looking in the window. Probably, I don't know, 12 feet maybe from me to the window. It's right there. And like I say, it wasn't any light outside, but the light shining from my living room light, still illuminated. And so I just didn't know really what to do. And that's when I had contacted DW and talked to him, and he gave me some advice on not trying to really escalate it anymore as far as shooting at them and I hadn't shot at them. The only one I really had a shot at was the one that was standing in the yard or right in the edge of the driveway, and I was so confused on looking at it. Shooting it didn't even cross my mind. I had a gun right there. I could have shot it, or at least got the gun and pointed at it if it were a run. But it's just, and like I say, they come around here from time to time, but like I say, I hadn't messed with them. And as far as going out, I just quit going outside at all at night. When anything I had to do, or if I was somewhere or whatever, I would just leave to make sure I was home before dark. And it's just the things had ramped down, and I really don't want to talk about it a whole lot, but I had my dog got killed here recently, and this is in the middle of the corona stuff, and I had 3 deputies and a dog warden down here, and I don't know if they knew exactly what was happening, or what the deal is, but they just said, well, we want to make sure you're safe. And it didn't make no sense the way they acted, and they wouldn't even go into domestic things, because of corona stuff. And now I got several deputies and a dog warden down here, and my dogs are dead. And,
was the dog attacked?
I don't know, but he didn't have a mark on it.
Okay.
And he's just dead in the field. And I don't know. But that morning, I found out a few days later, what had happened is I had went to work, and I had stopped at the local store. I had to wait on the guy that was running late that rode with me, and I was meeting him at my boss's house. And when I got to the little local store, somebody else I knew said there's cops in the field right at your house. And I'm like, what's cops doing in my field? So I told my buddy, I said, well, I'm going to go check on that. You go on to work. So, I had to drive back and get my truck and then drive all the way back home. And I get home, there's a deputy and the dog warden at my dog. There's another one walking at the field, and he's got his pistol in his hand walking at the edge of the woods into the field. And I didn't know it at the time, but there was another one up in the woods behind my house. And so I'm like, they're like, your dog got hit. And, he was 4 years old and knew the road, and he was really smart and didn't have a mark on him. And there's blood around it. And I'm like, I roll him over and I'm looking, and I was like, where did this blood come from? And they're looking at each other. And, they're not telling me. They said, well, your dog was hit. I said, well, this blood ain't from him. I thought maybe one of them had shot him for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he was locked in the house. And so, it was just confusing. I'm upset, my dog's dead, and he was and me and him was just bonded. And so I come up to the house, and that's when I seen the third officer, and he's coming out, walking out the woods, and he's got his gun out. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he said the same thing. We're here to make sure you're safe. I said, safe from what? What's going on? And he, and my back door was completely wide open. And he said he had not been in the house or anything. So I said, like, you're here to make sure I'm safe, but, you ain't even went in the house to look and see if anybody's here or hurt. And it's some blood droplets and stuff on my porch too. And I'm completely baffled. And I'm upset, and I run them off, and I bury my dog, and it was like a day or so later, I went to the little local store near my house, and one of the guys in there, he's like, man, I'm sorry to hear your dog got killed. And I'm like, yeah, it's terrible. And he was like, well, it was a truck driver in here that same morning that said he hit a big furry bear in front of your house, in front of my driveway. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, it was before daylight and all that. So when I had let Jackson out that morning, he had went, I let him have to use the bathroom and stuff, and he had went up on the hill a little ways, and I could hear him growling and, upset over something. So I hollered at him, and he come on back. And, I don't really know what happened, between that time, but it's just a real strange set of circumstances around it.
Right.
And like I say, he didn't have a mark on him. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's
what happened.
that's interesting for sure. And so when all this started, one of the first things you saw after just a little bit of activity was these military police types on your property with the green lasers, right?
No, they didn't have it. They had, while at one point in time when I was in the house, it looked like like a bar scanner.
Okay.
It's got like a long red beam.
Right.
One of those big beams swept like down the entire length of my house. Like they was pointing it and scanning.
Like they were searching.
I have no idea what that is or
right.
But that went down and back.
Okay.
And
right. Like they were searching for something in your house?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know what that was or why they was pointing it at my house. I mean, I've never been in any trouble for anything.
Sure.
Worked all my life, I don't have nobody coming and going, nothing that I'd be on any remotely,
And when you tried
to anybody,
you try to talk to them and identify yourself and get them to identify themselves, and they just completely ignored you?
Yeah.
How close were you to them at that point?
Well, when they initially done it, I could see the one, like I say, it was it looked like an indicator light off of something that's battery powered. When you barely see a little glow, but pitch dark, it stands out.
Right.
And I was trying to get up to sneak up on him, and I think I inadvertently snuck up in between them.
Okay.
And they was probably, 30 foot maybe on each side of me.
Right.
And I had no idea they was even there. The only one I knew was there was the one where I could see the lights.
Right. But you could clearly see the one you were trying to make contact with, right?
Yeah.
And did he even look at you at all, or just completely ignored you?
Well, it was like I say, it was into the woods, and there was some bushes and stuff in between me and him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just coming out of my driveway into the edge of the woods at that point. So when I went out the back door, I was completely quiet, trying to sneak up on whoever it was so I could catch them.
Right.
And so I used my vehicle kind of for cover and snuck as quietly as I could down through my driveway, and just had started into the woods there to where they was at.
Right. And then you try to call out to them.
Yeah. Immediately when they, because like I said, I turned my flashlight on, and like I said, the bushes was still in between me and the one there. And when I turned, they're about 30 foot or so, that I could hear them on one side and then the other side. And as soon as I seen the military uniforms, I just, I didn't know if it was law enforcement or military. It was just like a black SWAT looking type of uniform.
Right.
And so my hands went with the gun, and immediately with the flashlight, my hand went above my head. Because I'm out there with a gun, I didn't want to get shot.
Right.
And so I didn't have the light, pointed at none of them. And then they wouldn't answer me or anything, and I tried to talk to them, and so I just started backing up, and didn't want to put my hands down, or I didn't know if it may be some more out there, and I inadvertently pointed a gun at one of them or whatever. So I walked back, with the flashlight and the gun and everything above my head.
Right. Well, I can tell you, I'm former state police, and to have a situation like that's not out of the realm of normal, but we're always trained to identify ourselves. So it strikes me really odd that once you try to make contact, they obviously were not there for you. So they were looking for something else. But what else are they looking for? There's no other people on your property, so it stands to reason they were looking for some type of animal or something like that, or maybe escape person kind of thing. But it's really odd that they wouldn't identify themselves to you, or because we're trained to always identify ourselves, especially you're on someone else's property. You're disturbing their peace. They're coming out with a gun, which is a normal thing to do because they're trying to protect their property and their land, and see if there's any kind of threat level or anything. And so it's not out of the ordinary for you to come out with your gun to try and investigate what's going on. And at that time, it seems to me that regular police and all would identify themselves and tell you something, or give you some sort of instructions, like we need you to go back in your house, kind of thing, and stay there, that sort of
Yeah,
thing. So, and
yeah,
then you went to
that was the most baffling part is nobody would say anything.
right,
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. And then I went in the house and I thought, well, you know, maybe they just wasn't, they was preparing to rape me for some reason, got the wrong address or whatever, and they're figuring out what to do. And,
right,
I didn't know what may be going on with them.
right. And then when you went to the departments later with the state and the local sheriff, and they both indicated to you, well, we can't really say, but we don't have anything going on there. So they would have told you if they were basically giving you answering your answer, in an indirect way, because they can't go divulge into what their actual case is. But they were still both telling you, look, we don't have anything going on here, so don't worry about us. So it certainly stands to reason that this was more military uh, or some type of federal agency program. But even then, it's very strange that they didn't speak to you, acknowledge you, or give you any instructions. I can only imagine if I was in that situation with a team, and I've been in the military too. Um, that I would say, at least, sir, we have a situation we can't give you any information about, but we would request that you go back in your house and stay there for your safety. You know what I mean? Something to
Yeah,
that degree, at least, at the very least. And I've also heard of several other encounters where people have come into contact with similar type people, but even though they don't divulge a lot of information, they do acknowledge your presence. They do speak to you. They do tell you to put the gun down. These are all normal things. This case is so weird that they didn't even care about you having the gun pointed at them. And even when you were on the front porch and you came out and pointed a gun at one, and like you said, they didn't have any fear whatsoever of you with that gun. Or, most officers would say, now, sir, you need to put that gun down. We're not here for you, that kind of thing, just to make sure. Because when someone's got a gun pointed at you, it's a tense situation. Yet this one guy, also from the same team, just had no fear whatsoever with you with the gun, wasn't concerned about you at all, and still didn't acknowledge you.
yeah. He didn't even flinch. And
So,
like I say, I had the lights off, like I had went to bed
right,
and stuff back in here to, because all I want to do is at that point is just tell me who they were. That's
right,
all I wanted.
right,
Because if they wanted to do me harm, they had, you know.
right,
I knew I was outnumbered. I was outgunned. Uh, they had the advantage on me as far as being in the woods anywhere around where they had plenty of cover, and I didn't know where they was at.
right. And so when you finally saw the one of these creatures, where you could get a good description of them, that's when you said it looked fox like, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the face and stuff of it. And it had a, not a long, a shorter kind of bushy tail.
Okay.
And, it, like I say,
How
that's
tall?
the closest I can come to a description.
How tall did you say that one was?
It was a little over 5 foot tall.
Okay.
I went out there the next day and took some measurements up to where it was standing up close to the, I could see about how high it was on the van.
Right. And was that one very muscular? Did it have a lot of hair?
It was fur all over it, but it wasn't like long hair or anything. It was completely covered in fur.
And was it muscular or thin?
It was kind of thin. It wasn't like you hear a lot of these descriptions of them being really buff or whatever.
Right.
This.
Well, there's lots of,
other than being real freaky looking,
right.
It wasn't intimidating looking.
And what was the emotional impression you got when you encountered this thing? Made eye contact with you, right?
Yeah, it was looking right at me.
And what was your emotions at that time? What did you feel from it at that moment? What was your impression?
To me, it seemed curious.
Okay.
It didn't. I didn't get no even feeling or anything off of that one.
Right.
I didn't. It was just like it was. I don't know if it was trying to figure out what about the light coming out the window hitting it, or
In my research,
what?
The research I've done around the Appalachian Trail areas, there is reports of a type of foxman, as opposed to a dogman. That's smaller, thinner, and looks more like a fox than your typical descriptions of the dogmen, which are like these hulking muscle, werewolf type creatures that you would see from movies and stuff like that. And from what I've heard, they say these foxmen has never been known to hurt anybody. They tend to be a lot more benign. And so it was interesting to me that you said that you felt it was just curious and you didn't feel fear from that, So I thought that was really interesting. When you were in your house at the time and you heard everything running through your property, where you said it sounded like something was slapping the car, what do you think was going on there? What do you think was happening?
I don't know if they were trying to. Looking back on it, I think they were trying to bait me out.
Okay.
But thinking back on it, it could have been like, it struck me as being young.
Okay.
It didn't look like it was maybe, full grown.
Right.
It just seemed like it was younger.
Right.
And, but it might have been like teenagers, wanting to just stir trouble up, and that's the only excitement they're getting.
And that's another thing too. You could just have adolescent dogmen that wouldn't be as big or muscular, and they're known to not have the best judgment. They do stupid stuff. So being young, they haven't had enough time to learn how to be real smart about things yet. So I mean that's another possibility. But how many of them do you think did it sound like were there? A bunch of them, or just a few?
From the direction of the stuff, there was at least two.
At least two, okay.
I mean, I don't know. Like I say, because you could hear it over here, and then it'd be over there.
Right.
And, and sometimes you wouldn't hear anything, any movement between this point and that point, and then you could hear stuff moving around.
The military types, have they been? Was it just the one time they were on your property, or have they been back out there other times?
As far as I know, that was the only time.
Okay. Well, it definitely seems like they were in pursuit of something, and it certainly wasn't you. So that's really curious. But now, there were any other times that you were able to see one of these creatures that you had a different look at it? Like, were there any ones that looked different than the that one you saw close that looked like a fox, or is it
But
just that?
the only thing that I seen that was a lot larger, and I just got a glimpse of it, is I shined the light out one night. Just something told me to look out the window. I
Right.
didn't hear nothing, and I shined the light out and caught a glimpse of something that was larger, but it was when it took off, it was as far as I could see with the flashlight. You know what I mean? It run out of away from the window where I couldn't get it,
Right.
and I could hear it hit. It was some my dog pen out there. It run into one like a standing dead pine,
Right.
probably 6 or 8 inches around, and knocked it over and hit the fence and broke one of the fence posts off in the ground. And then it turned and knocked another tree over the other way, and I could hear it running.
Okay.
And the footsteps on that one sounded different. And that's what makes me think that, it may be, some big in the area or something, because there's other things. It's like a quick, choppy type of sound. And this was more of a like a good bit longer stride.
Okay. Well, it's not uncommon that both are seen in the same areas. So that would certainly stand to reason. Were you able to ever find tracks or prints?
I've got like slate and orange clay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's pretty hard. I mean, you can put a bottle jack about anywhere and jack something up, and it's not going to sing.
Wow.
And I mean, it's that type of hard clay. Unless it's been really raining and soaked in for a while, it's nothing really leaves that many tracks.
Okay.
I found one track that I'm 6'3", and with my hand spread out the web of in between my thumb and my finger, it was about that size.
And what type of track was that?
It was a canine looking track.
Canine looking track. Well, that would definitely be a description of a dog man. They say if you take your hand and spread it out as wide as you can, that would be about the size of a print, a canine print for that type of creature. So that certainly makes sense. And for the audience, just so you know, Connor's property is one of the places we're trying to place one of the cameras right now for the DogmanCams.com show. We are our website. We were trying to get it to Connor before the 31st, but unfortunately, with the hurricane that just came through, that has put a delay on mail and our ability to get that done in time. But we are shipping one out to Connor very soon. As soon as now that the storms pass and the mail's getting back up and running, and we can get it there. And so we're very excited about that. Connor, thank you very much for coming on the show today, being willing to talk about your story. And I know you appreciate your privacy, which is a very good thing. And but I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me about this. I have heard this story before, where you went to the sheriff and you had said, you talked about possibly shooting somebody what didn't belong on your land, and the sheriff got all mad or something like that, saying, hey, we don't have anyone out there, but you can't just shoot somebody. But I'd be saying the same thing if someone was on my property like that, and especially if they weren't identifying themselves, because that's just rude behavior, and that can't be tolerated. But
I mean, you hear crazy stuff with people dressing up like law enforcement.
That's
and
true.
Going home invasion.
Right. You got to be
All
careful.
that stuff, but you never know. But
there's starting to be a trend now where law enforcement agencies are going back to no marked vehicles. They'll pull you over for traffic stops, and I'm not a fan of that. If you pull me over, I want it to be high visibility and I want it to be fully marked, because you don't know, because we have had trouble with people impersonating police officers that just put a strobe in their car and try and pull people over. And
yep.
and that's a very dangerous situation. If someone's on my property, I damn well want to know about it, and I want to know who you are and why you're there. So otherwise, yeah, you don't know what kind of crazy person could be doing whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, as far as I know, they hadn't been back. But like I say, I didn't go outside at night for. It's been a couple of years now that absolutely did not go outside at night, other than maybe on the porch.
Right.
And so,
hey, have you had any recent activity as far as cryptids or any type of?
It's been a couple months that I can say yeah.
Right.
Well,
the one thing about the Dogman and the research is they tend to be nomadic. They tend to be migratory, but they also tend to follow the same patterns. So if you've had the activity there before, it won't be long before you're seeing it again there.
Well, like I say, I think when I went and started that hunting in that area over there, and I've been told that they'll get your sniff and follow you home, and
right.
I don't know if that's what happened or anything, but I didn't. Didn't really have anything going on until I went over there.
Well, that certainly stands to reason that that was the inciting incident that started all this, because it was the only thing that changed that brought all this attention back to you. So yeah, that's another thing they do is get your scent and go back. Bigfoot are extremely territorial. If you cross their territory, they'll sometimes come after you and cause problems. But the Dogmen, yeah, if they pick up your scent, they like to track that back. And there's several stories of that as well. So that definitely could be the case for your situation. But
like I say, that holler over there where I was hunting at, I mean, I think that would be a good spot for a camera too, because like I say, I get a spooky, like the first week I went in there,
right,
I didn't have any, nothing. But when after I seen it, whatever was chasing that deer, then I started getting a bad vibe when I went in there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this, follow that feeling. You ever get that feeling, you follow it. So you ever go outside and you get that feeling, go back inside right away. You ever go hunting and you get that feeling, get out of there. When you don't have that feeling, you're good. But one thing I've learned in researching this is you follow that feeling. You follow that little voice that tells you whether it's safe or not, because that's a real thing, But yeah, I would definitely say that. Yeah, well, can you stick up the first camera in that hollow?
Yeah, I can. Well, if you want me to put it there, like I say, I was going to put one in the hollow right in behind my house, but if you want me to put one over there, I can put one over there.
Well, if you're getting more feelings that there's more going on there and more activity there, then yeah, it'd definitely be a better place for the camera. But I need to wrap up for now. So, Connor, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show today and speaking with our audience. And I look forward to talking with you more later.
Okay.
But thanks again for coming on. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everybody. This has been DogmanCams.com. DogmanCams.com. See you later.